One of the biggest mistakes I see retirees make in Thailand isn't spending too much on beer or eating out too often. It's not the extra plate of pad krapao or a couple of Chang beers in the evening. It's the bigger costs that slowly creep up on you over time. And before you know it, you're looking at your bank balance wondering where's the money gone. I've lived over here in Thailand for more than 15 years now, and I've seen people do really well here and build a great life. But I've also seen people come over thinking they've got plenty of money, only to realise a few years later that their budget wasn't as solid as they thought. So this isn't one of those videos telling you Thailand is paradise and you can live here on next to nothing. There are plenty of those videos already. And if I'm honest, some are made by people who haven't been here that long and are still living off savings rather than actual retirement income. This video is for people thinking long term, not just the first few months. I'm talking 20, 30 years. Because Thailand can still be a fantastic place to retire in 2026. I genuinely believe that. But things have changed. The Thailand from 10 years ago, where you could arrive with a modest pension and somehow make it all work, is slowly disappearing. Costs have gone up, electricity is up, insurance is up, fuel is up, and pensions haven't exactly kept pace. So in this video, I want to talk about the 4 costs that catch retirees out again and again: healthcare, housing mistakes, electricity and transport. Get these wrong and even a decent pension can start feeling tight. Get them right and Thailand can still offer a brilliant retirement. And no, I'm not saying you need to be rich to retire here. You don't. But you do need to be smarter than retirees had to be 10 years ago. So let's start with the question I probably get asked more than anything. How much money do you actually need to retire in Thailand in 2026? And the honest answer is, it depends. I know that answer is not what people want to hear, but it's the truth. Because retiring in Thailand on 40,000 baht a month looks very different from retiring on 120,000 baht a month. And neither is automatically right or wrong. It depends entirely on what kind of life you want. Roughly speaking, I see 3 budget tiers. Let's go through them. The first is what I call the tight budget, somewhere around 40,000 to 55,000 baht a month. Now, can you live in Thailand on that? Yes, absolutely. Plenty of people do, but let's be honest, it's a careful life. You're probably not eating at Western restaurants 4 times a week. You're not running the aircon all afternoon just because you feel like it. You're shopping at local supermarkets more than imported supermarkets. You're probably living outside the main expat hotspots. And most importantly, there isn't much margin for error. That's the big issue. One unexpected problem, especially health related, and things can get tight very quickly. Now the second tier is where I think a lot of my audience sits. I call this the comfortable range, roughly about 60,000 to 90,000 baht a month. At this level, I think life gets easier, a lot easier. You can rent a decent condo or house, you can eat out regularly, you can travel around Thailand without stressing over every baht. And you're far more likely to afford proper health insurance without it swallowing a huge chunk of your monthly budget. For many retirees from the US, UK, Australia or Canada, this is where Thailand starts to feel like the retirement they imagined. Not just cheaper than home, better than home. Then we get to the third tier, the very comfortable tier, around 100,000 baht a month and above. At this point, financial stress drops a lot. Bigger house, maybe a pool, better insurance, a car, regular trips home to see the family. A very comfortable lifestyle. Now, most retirees aren't in this bracket, and that's perfectly fine. Because here's what really matters. Your retirement success in Thailand isn't only about how much money you have. It's about how well you manage the big costs. And this is where people get caught out. They obsess over the price of a beer or a bowl of noodles, but those aren't usually what destroys a retirement budget. The real damage comes from 4 areas: healthcare, housing mistakes, electricity and transport. Now let's talk about healthcare, because if I'm honest, for most people watching this is one that really keeps them up at night. And rightly so. You can adjust to higher rent. You can cut back on restaurants. You can drive less. But if your health goes downhill and you're not properly covered, that can blow a retirement budget apart very, very quickly. And here's the reality of this. Health insurance in Thailand gets more expensive as you get older, and it doesn't always go up gently either. Once you move into your 60s and especially your 70s, premiums can jump up quite sharply. That catches a lot of people out. The bigger issue though isn't just the price, it's timing. And this is where I see a lot of people make a serious mistake. They say, I'll sort insurance out later. Maybe they arrive in Thailand at 62 or 65 feeling healthy, thinking they'll deal with it down the road. Then 5 years later, they've had a heart issue or diabetes or something else gets diagnosed. Now they finally go shopping for insurance, and suddenly that condition is excluded, possibly forever. That's the real danger. Pre-existing conditions are one of the biggest retirement killers I see. I've watched people arrive with perfectly sensible plans, only to discover they waited too long. So what are your options? Private insurance is the obvious one, and for many people it's still the best solution, especially if you buy earlier while you're still relatively healthy. The earlier you get in, the more options you usually have. Some retirees choose to self-insure instead, meaning they build a dedicated medical fund rather than paying monthly premiums. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong. For some people with substantial savings, it can work, but you need to be realistic. I'm not talking about having a bit of money put aside. I'm talking about a serious medical buffer. Because one major hospital stay in a private Thai hospital can get very expensive. What I personally see working well for many retirees is a hybrid strategy. Good insurance for the big stuff, hospital stays, surgery, cancer treatments, then pay out of pocket for the smaller routine things, checkups, dental, minor treatments. And one big advantage of Thailand is that routine healthcare is still often very affordable compared to the West. So I'm not saying panic, I'm saying plan early. Because sorting out healthcare while you're still healthy is usually far easier than trying to sort it out after you need it. Now let's talk honestly about housing, because this is another area where I see people quietly burn through money without even realizing it. And the mistake usually isn't moving to Thailand. The mistake is choosing the wrong version of Thailand for your budget. I see this all the time. Someone comes here on holiday, they stay in the nicest part of town, right near the beach, right near the restaurants, everything feels convenient, they fall in love with that lifestyle, and then assume that's where they need to live permanently. But here's the thing, holiday thinking and retirement thinking are not always the same. What feels perfect for 2 weeks may not be the smartest financial decision for 20 years. I also see retirees renting huge Western-style houses, 3-bedroom, big garden, lots of space. And sometimes I think, do you actually need all of that? Or are you paying for the idea? Because a lot of people arrive thinking retirement should look a certain way. Big house, guest room, nice garden. But the reality is many couples spend most of their time using 1 bedroom, 1 living area and the kitchen. Meanwhile, they're paying to cool rooms they barely enter. That adds up. Now don't get me wrong, if you've got the budget and that lifestyle matters to you, that's fine. But run the numbers honestly. And here's something to think about. Living right in the centre of a popular expat area gives you convenience. Walk to cafes, walk to restaurants, walk to shops. That has real value. But move just 10 or 15 minutes outside the centre and rents can drop dramatically, sometimes by 1/3 or more, and often for a bigger or better property. Now yes, you need transport, a scooter, a car, something, so there's always a trade-off. But the key is making that choice consciously, not just renting the first nice place an agent shows you. Because overpaying by even 10,000 baht a month might not sound disastrous, but over 10 years, that's 1.2 million baht gone That's serious money. So when it comes to housing, ask yourself one simple question. Am I paying for the lifestyle I actually live, or the lifestyle I imagine I'll live? That question alone can save you a fortune. Now let's talk about the cost that I think a lot of people seriously underestimate: electricity, and more specifically air conditioning. Because air conditioning in Thailand is almost like a hidden retirement tax. Nobody really talks about it often enough. I see people planning retirement budgets all the time. They calculate rent, their food, they calculate the visa costs, but they completely underestimate what it costs to stay comfortably in this climate. And if you come from somewhere like the UK, this can be a real shock. Because back home, aircon might be something you use a few days a year, if that. Here, for a large part of the year, nearly all the year, especially in the hot season, you'll be running the aircon for hours and hours every single day. And that adds up fast, very fast. Electricity prices have crept up as well. So what used to be a manageable bill can now become one of the biggest monthly expenses after rent. Now I'll tell you what I did. About 3 months ago we installed solar, and I want to be honest here, I didn't do it to save the planet. That wasn't really the reason. I did it because I got fed up with the idea of my electricity bill going up year after year. For me, this was about protecting future costs. Simple as that. Now I also made a mistake at the start. I went too small. We started with 5 panels and a 100 amp battery. On paper that looked fine, but in reality not so much. Yes, we could run one aircon for most of the day, but by evening, the exact time you really wanted to be cool, the battery was too low. So quickly we realised this setup wasn't enough. So now we've actually upgraded. We've put now 10 panels totally on the roof, and now we have a much bigger battery, a 300 amp battery, which has made a huge difference, but we're still in the early stages. We're still monitoring everything properly, so I'm not going to sit here and throw out dramatic saving numbers before I've got any real long-term data on that. I'll rather wait until I've got 6 months or maybe a year of proper numbers, then I can show you the real results. But even now, I can already see a noticeable difference. And here's the bigger point. I'm not saying everyone should go out and install solar tomorrow, absolutely not. That's not the takeaway. The real takeaway is this. If you're retiring in Thailand for the long term, electricity is not some minor side expense. It's a major fixed cost. And like most fixed costs, if you ignore it, it slowly eats away at your budget. So whether your answer is solar or better insulation, or choosing a home with good shade, or simply being smarter about how and when you use aircon, think about this properly, because in 2026, staying cool in Thailand isn't as cheap as it was. Right, let's talk about transport, because this is another cost that has quietly gone up in Thailand. And again, most people don't think about it enough when planning retirement. I'm not talking about cars here, I'm talking about your monthly budget. Fuel simply costs more than it used to. I've seen this myself very clearly. I had the same pickup truck for years now. A few years ago, filling up cost me around 2,000 baht. Now, closer to 3,000 baht. That's a very noticeable jump. And if you live outside of town, which many retirees do because rent is cheaper, the transport costs matter even more. This is where people can get caught out. They move 15-20 minutes outside the main expat areas to save money on rent, which can absolutely be a smart move. But then they don't factor in the extra fuel costs from constantly driving everywhere. So sometimes the savings aren't as big as they first appear. That's something worth thinking about. Now, in our case, my wife recently bought an electric car. And the reason wasn't because we're obsessed with gadgets or technology. It was simple maths. Running costs are much lower. That's what matters. And I think that the bigger takeaway here is you don't need an EV, you don't need a pickup, you might not even need a car at all depending on where you live. But you do need to think about transport as part of your retirement strategy. because in 2026, them little recurring costs matter more than ever, and transport is definitely one of them. So let's bring it all together. Thailand is still, in my opinion, a fantastic place to retire. I genuinely believe that. The food is still amazing, the lifestyle can still be fantastic. The healthcare, when planned properly, is still one of the big advantages of living here. But the lazy retirement mindset that worked 10 years ago doesn't work as well in 2026. Back then, you could arrive with a modest pension, rent something cheap, eat local food, and more or less figure things out as you went. Today, the people thriving here are usually doing one thing well. They're managing their big fixed costs. They planned healthcare early, they chose housing carefully, and they paid attention to electricity. And they understand where their money is actually going each month. That's the difference. And that's really the big message of this video. You don't need to be rich to retire in Thailand, but you do need a plan, a realistic one, because the margin for error is smaller than it used to be. So I'd love to hear from you. What monthly budget are you planning for retirement in Thailand? And what worries you most? Healthcare, visas, rising costs, or something else entirely? Drop it in the comments below. And just do me a massive favour, if you've enjoyed this video today, just press that subscribe button, it's free on the channel. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.